Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 91 of the Yakking Show. This is where we talk about life, business, and more. We bring you tips and ideas for the changing world, and we bring you guests that will stretch your mind in one way or the other. And today's guest will be no exception. But it's not my job to introduce our guest. Kathleen does it so much better than I do. So first, let me welcome my co-host, Kathleen, down in Waterloo, Ontario. How are we today, Kathleen?
Oh, I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. It's warmed up. I think we're all the way up to -10 or something. That's an improvement, you know.
Well, thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you, and we love reading your comments. So do please keep them coming. And if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on the show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And if you're enjoying our shows, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it. And as Peter mentioned, we have a very special guest with us today. His name is Tim Sandars. He's the founder of Omnia. It's a company that sells products that help guard the body against harmful radiation, which we'll get into in a moment. Welcome, Tim. How are you?
Very good. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Yeah, and we must tell our audience that you are in London, England.
London, England. Yes, indeed, where it's not quite -10, but I think we reached about -3 today and everything broke. So yeah, that's what happens in the UK. As soon as we have anything extreme, it everything stops working.
Right. Well, Tim, why don't you start off by telling our audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to embark on a career protecting people against harmful radiation?
Sure. Well, the reason I was first made aware of it was by some alternative therapists in Singapore, where I used to live. And, I was having a few health problems at the time, and I was seeing people that were into kinesiology and other means of, I guess you could say, holistically testing the body. And they made me aware of the fact that, everyone fails a muscle test when you pick up your phone in your hand. If anyone's done applied kinesiology before, you'll know that that's a way of telling, getting the body to tell you whether you're sensitive to something or allergic to something or not, right? And and so these kinesiologists were putting a phone in my hand and showing that my body went weak, and because I was, recovering from something or dealing with some health issues, I started to take that very seriously. And that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And then sort of fast forward sort of 2 years from that, and I was in South Africa, of all places. I was at a conference that was held by a guy called Michael Tellinger, and he collected a whole load of guest speakers from all around the world. Do you know Michael? Yeah. He collected a whole load of amazing speakers about the pyramids or saving the animals or eco-farming or whatever it was. And there was one guy that was speaking about free energy. And it was a really interesting talk. It wasn't the easiest talk to listen to because this guy's first language was Serbian. And so it was kind of like, I'm not the biggest physics boffin in the room. And his concepts are very dense and very, very interesting once you get to really understand them. And halfway through his talk, he said, "Oh yeah, and by the way, I've got the solution to all the radiation problems in the world." And I just thought, well, that's quite a big call. That's quite a big, but also I'm like, what is it? I'd like to know what it is. I'd like to use it. So I went up to him afterwards because it was a very informal kind of event, festival type thing. And we got talking and I took his product home and I started testing it. And I did the applied kinesiology. I did live blood analysis and we did some water crystal photography. And we've done some other tests that we can talk about later. And I just thought, wow, this works super well. And then I said, how does it work? And we got into this understanding that he has that no one else is currently talking about, which is how does the body respond electrically to the electromagnetic fields in the radiation? And it's all about the spin of the electrical current in the radiation field versus the spin of the electrical current in our body, and in fact, in our cells. So every cell in the body is actually a spinning ring of electrical current. So we can come on to that later, but ultimately it's this clash between those two energy fields. So he explains everything in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so, yeah, I got more than I bargained for. I got, not just the real reason why this is a problem, but a solution that genuinely worked. And then a journey into a new understanding of the atom itself. The old understanding being proton, neutron, electron, and nucleus. And he's like, actually, it's not that. It's something different according to my measurements. So a whole load of things opened up for me, as you can imagine. And since then, I've been sharing his work, but obviously also promoting his product as my brand, which is called Omnia Radiation Balancer. So we built a brand around his product, and now I go around and tell people about the product and how it works, but also about his science to anyone that's interested to listen.
Wow, that is really interesting. I'll come back to the South African connection just now, something I want to ask you, but just for clarity for our audience, many of whom always think of radiation in terms of X-rays or cancer treatment, we're talking about a totally different type of radiation here, correct?
Well, I mean, you're right in that everyone, according to their science textbooks, always classifies radiation according to the electromagnetic spectrum, right? So you've got ionizing, and then you've got non-ionizing. And the difference between the two is that ionizing radiation creates enough heat to, as they have observed, break, shake an electron off an atom, for example, or to break chemical compounds, that sort of thing. And the reason is because the wave field, the electrical wave field, is moving super, super fast, right? The frequency is very, very high. So that generates a lot of energy, and that energy can break the atoms in our body and affect the atoms in our body to the point where they can measure it immediately, right? Because it's super fast and it hits your body and there's an immediate reaction. But what we're finding is happening, and this is not just Omnia, this is actually all of maybe 6,000 peer-reviewed studies that are out there that are linking extremely low frequency, right? So, radiation that basically doesn't move quite so fast, doesn't create so much energy, and doesn't create so much heat, and was previously classified as non-ionizing. What they're finding is that even that level of radiation can disrupt the electrical functions in the human body, and especially in the rats' bodies that they test. So there are some, that, like I said before, there's like 6,000 tests on rats where they've shown all sorts of things. And I advise people to look up resources like the Bio-Initiative report, because that's one of the main ones. And in that, they talk about the links to cancer, to diabetes, to endocrine system damage, to heart failure, to cognitive impairments. The list goes on and on and on. And we're here to tell you that the reason for that is because of vibration. It's not because of heat. So at an extremely low level of frequency, you still get this, what we call an imbalance in the vibration of the radiation field that disrupts the balance of the vibration and the electrical circuitry of the body.
Right. So I'm going to come, Kathleen, sorry, I'm going to jump in quick because you were talking South Africa just now. When I lived there, I remember reading reports about dairy farmers claiming their cows were giving less milk when they were in pastures under those overhead power lines, which were huge, 33,000 volts or something. And we've had the same thing in Canada with the wind turbines, controversy about cows giving less milk when their barn is close to one of these new windmills that have been put up, or wind turbines to generate power. Is that similar to what you were talking about with the rats in the laboratories?
Absolutely, because we come from a very simple principle at Omnia through the science of Dr. Lakisevich, who's the inventor of the Omnia Radiation Balancer, which is that all man-made electrical currents carry this imbalance and this uncenteredness. And what we really mean by that is that there is a 0 point, a magnetic still point at the center of every electrical field. And that 0 point can move around from the center, right? And in a radiation field made by man, that 0 point will stray away from the center
Okay.
of the field. And if you imagine that in our bodies, right, our cells are always looking to center that 0 point, so that you have that healthy cell, and the balance between the magnetic point and the electrical current that's spinning around it, what we call that magneto-electric field, to be in balance. There's a lot more to it than that, but I'm just going to leave it there.
Sure.
What happens with electrical fields that are made by man, right, compared to electrical fields like the sun's rays, which are made by, let's say, a creator. So when man makes these radiation fields, he makes them with an uncenteredness of 0 point and an imbalance. And then every organic life form that is exposed to these electrical fields made by man, is prone to being affected, right? So that includes cows, and that includes people.
Yep.
And the risk factors are, what is the strength of the signal, right? So is it super, super powerful? And as you well know, we're going from 4G to 5G soon,
5G, yeah.
which is a massive step up, right, in the electrification of our environment. So is it the strength of the signal is the first risk factor. The second one is how close is it to you? So if the cows are right underneath they're going to get affected because they're closer, because radiation diminishes a square law, if you want to look that up. And the third risk factor is exposure. So how much of the day are you exposing yourself to? If you're a cow, the electrical antenna above you, or if you're a person, how much time you're spending with this in your pocket or next to your brain, or in your hands.
Well,
so those are the three risk factors.
Right. Let's delve into that for a little bit with respect to cell phones. I'd like, you touched on some of the harmful effects of these radiations, such as cancer, but there's some other subtle side effects that some people may not even associate with harmful radiation. For instance, I have to give you an example because a few months ago, I made the decision to buy a smartwatch. I won't say which brand, but anyways, I was wearing, as soon as I put the smartwatch on my wrist, I could feel a pulsing, and it was painful. I felt pain from this going up my arm, and I became very foggy headed, almost like a real space cadet. I was making stupid mistakes. I thought, oh, is this all in my head? I removed the watch, and I felt normal again. I'd put it back on, and that same funny pulsing sensation was jutting up my arm. And in fact, what happened was I had to return this watch. I could not wear it at all. So maybe you can speak to what I was experiencing and what was happening by just having.
Sure. Well, as a general rule, anything that has smart in front of it isn't very smart for you. I have to be careful not to get into too much trouble there, because obviously there's a lot of power in the industry of smart devices and so on. But ultimately, it's smart in that it's clever, but it's not very clever for your body for the reasons that I've touched on earlier. And when you get something, if you take your radiation meter, right, and you hold it next to your phone, your smartwatch, whatever, the levels are incredibly high. I'm not going to say how high, because it won't make any sense to anyone unless you understand, milligauss and all sorts of other things, right? But the readings go from like 0.001 to like 14, which is a massive step up.
Huge,
once you even go from like 1 foot to next to the radiating device, or maybe 1 meter, 2 meters, the difference goes crazy. So this is a massive amount of electrical activity that we're putting in our hands, on our wrists, in our smartwatches, whatever it is. And like I said earlier, everything in the body is electric, right? Your heart is an electric pump. You know that because you've seen an ECG, right? Without that electricity in your body, you die. right? All your brain waves are invisible electrical fields, right? Theta, alpha, beta, gamma, whatever the other one is. They're all different frequencies of electrical fields in your mind. But even me going like this is my mind moving electrical current around the many millions, if not billions, of cells around my hand, right? So when you touch these electromagnetic fields, or as we might call them, magnetoelectric fields, but no matter, but when that contact happens directly, remember it's all about proximity, then the energy, frequency, and vibration in your body starts to react and go, wait a minute, what's this? Right? And it is literally an electrical reaction, and that can trigger headaches, it can trigger nausea. It just depends on who you are and how you react. But we get many stories from customers who say that something like what you were talking about just cleared up, not even overnight, but just straight away. And it's because we change the state of that man-made radiation field, and we make it a match for the spin of energy in the human body. That's the bit. You want to basically bring radiation field and the body's energy field.
Interesting.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had a chance to get you any yet, but I'll certainly send you some.
Well, I think that's where we're going to delve into next is how does this work? Is it a device that you wear? Is it, is it something that attaches to your smartphone, or
Sure.
how, maybe you can talk about that.
Well, it's really simple. So simple that a lot of people get suspicious. But basically it looks like this. These are 6 Omnia stickers. And within this sticker, there is an energy imprint. And that energy imprint has the ability to get in touch and contact. Remember, we talked about, the energy fields connecting, like the energy field of the human body connecting with the imbalanced radiation field. Well, now, if we put one of these on a phone, this energy field now talks to the energy field in this phone. And it basically says all energy that is imbalanced, where the 0 point is moving around, not centering in the middle, get the 0 point back to the middle. Now, most people will say, how on earth do you expect me to believe that a sticker can do that? Well, this is where it gets quite interesting, because the inventor of the product has found that there's a new type of energy that can be deployed for use in such circumstances. And in fact, he's using this new unit of energy in some new inventions that he's got coming out, which could be truly, society changing, shall we say. And let's just say that he envisages a future without any cables or wires, right? So where our laptops or our whatever it is don't have to be plugged in. We can use this new unit of energy, which is actually in harmony with the earth, right? So it won't actually, ruin the ecosystem. So this new unit of energy is something that he calls Deca Energy. And the reason is because the unit of energy that he works with is shaped like a dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided pentagon. And the difference between this dodecahedron that he works with and the one that you see in the physics books is that this one has 12 spiraling cones of light coming from each of the 12 sides into the center. So these spinning rings of light basically go across in 6 pairs. So that makes 12 cones altogether on each of the 12 sides, and they go across the dodecahedron structure, passing energy across. And because they have those 12 cones in place, the 0 point of that energy structure is always absolutely centered. And therefore the energy field is always balanced. And that's what we're doing here. We're meeting an imbalanced field with a perfectly balanced field and saying, overriding that field so that then the energy field of the human body meets that balanced energy field and goes, that's something I like. And I often give the comparison of wireless radiation. It's like an orchestra, right? You can't hear it, right? An orchestra you can't hear. But if you could hear it, right, because it's all frequency and it's all, energy that's in the air, if you could hear it, it would be like the orchestra was tuning up, right? Everything was like out of tune, and you'd be like holding your ears and you'd be going, oh my God, what's that horrible sound? But the thing is, with wireless radiation, you can't smell it, you can't see it. Right? So ultimately, what we do with the Omnia patch is that we tune the orchestra up so that it's making a really pleasant sound, right? And then when it's making that pleasant sound, we then test on the human body with things like applied kinesiology, and we do water structure testing. We do ART as well, autonomic response testing, which got extraordinary results, which we can talk about later. So we use the body to say, now that we've changed the state of the field, do you like that? And every time we get this resounding yes. So it's using this tiny, tiny, tiny unit of energy that is imprinted in a simple sticker, meets the radiation, changes the radiation back to centeredness and balance, and then the body says yes.
Wow.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to get your head around, that a simple sticker can be encoded with technology that can basically negate that harmful radiation. It's really is something.
Well, let me blow your mind just a little bit more for just a second, which is that in our science, in the science of Dr. Lakisevich, that there's a simple explanation for that, which everyone's missing, which is that every atom, it doesn't matter if it's in a coffee cup or in my body, is a spinning ring of electrical current, right? Every atom.
Okay.
So the difference between the coffee cup and my body is that I have a mind to move all my atoms around, right? But ultimately, the atoms in that cup follow the same principles as the atoms in my body.
Right.
As in, it's a ring of light that looks like a torus field, and on the inside of that torus field is a magnetic still point holding the electrical current in place, right? So it really just depends on how quickly that electrical current's moving, and the electrical current in this cup is moving a hell of a lot faster than the electrical currents in my body, giving the illusion of stillness to this. And we always say, well, this is, everything that's still must be dead and inanimate, but it actually isn't. So it's the same thing for these stickers. You think, well, everything in that must be dead and inanimate because it's not moving and it's not doing anything. But actually the opposite is true, which is that it's full of lots of atoms that are spinning with electrical current, or light. It's the same thing as Tesla used to say, which is that everything is light. And according to this science, which is the science of, if you like, the holographic universe, which is that everything is living and dying, flicking on and off, just like a movie screen, effectively. But the movie screen, the product of the movie screen is atoms that are basically making themselves into rings of light and discharging themselves in rapid succession, flicking on and off, on and off, on and off, giving the illusion of solidity, matter, life. But ultimately, these walls, these glasses, everything is following the same principle.
Right. So, Tim, I'm going to ask you one that I've just thought of, because you've covered a lot of the things I was going to ask you anyway. Right. I believe that the number of people suffering from cancer has increased in my lifetime. And when I say increased, I'm not talking about purely in absolute terms. I'm talking the number of people per million or 100,000 or whatever has increased. So if I was to say that seems to have happened at the same time as the proliferation of electronic devices, would there be some correlation there, or is there any causation there, or is it purely a correlation, or is it purely a fact of people living longer? What's your opinion? And you're not a doctor, so it's a bit of an unfair question, but I'd like your thoughts.
And I can't answer that one without getting myself or my brand in trouble.
I know.
However, I will point you to a $26 million study that was done by the National Toxicology Program in the USA. and after about 3 years, they found what they called clear evidence of certain schwannomas being produced in rats when they were exposed to wireless radiation. So you can look that report up. I'm not going to get into trouble by telling anyone about that report. And now I'm going to tell you why we believe that happens, right? So we believe that that is dissonance in the cell. Effectively, it's the loss of vibrational balance. And the vibrational balance is the balance between the compression into the light ring, into the matter of the cell, and the discharge. When that is in balance, you have a perfectly centered 0 point. And here's the thing, right? In the atom, that 0 point, it effectively represents consciousness. So the 0 point inside, the magnetic 0 point inside all of our cells in our body is always reacting to whatever you are exposed to, right? So we react on an electrical level to everything we're exposed to. Like some examples: sunlight. We react to sunlight. You know, we feel better when we're in sunlight, or even walking barefoot in nature, right? Or even smelling flowers, right? Or having a hug, or hearing good music. This is all examples of where the magnetic still point inside our body responds positively because we are in resonance with what we're experiencing, right? It's in the same vibrational pattern as us, right? But when we meet things that aren't in the same vibrational pattern as us, which tend to be man-made, by the way, you know, I'll give you an example of car fumes, right? When we walk behind a bus, we're like, oh my God, you know, close your, you know, hold your nose and run away, because the spin in that smoke of the bus fumes is not in balance with the spin of all of, you know, the functions in the human body. But that's an instance where, because of evolution and smell, the sense of smell, we can actually tell our body to get out of that situation. And as I was mentioning earlier, if we had the same kind of sense that could pick up what phone radiation and wireless radiation was doing to us, we wouldn't pick these things up.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? We would not pick these things up. It's, I would think it was as simple as that. So in answer to your question, I'll let the viewers decide whether what I'm saying is makes sense to them, and also to look at that study, and you know, then you'll find out where I sit in the debate. However, I also know that there's an awful lot of other things that are coming at us through the food, through the air pollution. But I certainly think that, you know, as electrical beings, you know, the challenge that we face right now is very severe.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And these electronics are not going away anytime soon.
No,
if anything, we're increasing. I mean, we're now going into smart homes, right? So we have Wi-Fi. We're surrounded by Wi-Fi everywhere you go, not just your electrical devices. So I think that more research will continue to try to help protect people from that, right? Because on the one hand, you've got people developing harmful technology, but at the same time, we need something to counter that.
Absolutely. I need to get the name of that report, please, Tim. National Toxicology?
National Toxicology Program. Yeah.
Okay, I can look that up. I just wanted that last bit.
NTP. Yeah, they're a kind of institution
Sure.
who looks into anything that's toxic to the human body, and they did a report on EMF radiation exposure. I forget the exact title of the report, but just if you type a combination of that in, you'll find it.
Back to Kathleen. She's got something to ask you, I know.
Well, getting back to how do we know that Omnia Radiation Balancer works? You mentioned something about live blood microscopy. And for those of you that are not familiar with that, it's when you take a little sample of your blood and then you put it in under a microscope. You take that little droplet of blood and you analyze it under a microscope, and you see the difference between the before and after. Isn't that right, Tim? And that was one
Absolutely.
way that you can prove that your technology actually works, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I have to actually be careful about saying even the word works, because of the, you know, the
I did.
internet police
Yeah.
being after me. But
Sure.
this is what we found, right? Which is that you go in overnight. I turned everything off, Wi-Fi, phones, everything else, right? And in the morning, about 10 a.m., having had 12 hours of no exposure to EMF or radiation or microwave radiation, you take a blood sample, you take it out of your body, and like you said, you put it under the microscope. And what you should see is lots of torus-shaped, donut-shaped blood cells swimming around the sample, right, when you magnify in. And they should all have space around the actual blood sample, right? So they shouldn't really be overlapping or clumping together. Everything in an ideal world, because we talked about healthy, balanced blood cells being this nice, you know, centered, donut-shaped blood cell in the body. So that's what your blood should look like, but it never looks perfect, right? And you know, you'll never get the perfect, you know, donuts everywhere, because your body is always dealing with toxins, emotions, stress, fatigue, you name it, right? But in general, the sample was mostly, you know, donuts in their own space, right? And then I watched a video, holding the phone in my hand for 20 minutes, right? And the reason we hold it in the hand is just to get that maximum impact, as in proximity. I'm touching the radiation field, you know what I mean. And then we took another sample, and the whole thing stuck together. Like, you know, everything was just clumped together. All the electrical balance had been lost and compromised within my blood cells. And then immediately after that, as in while my blood was still like that, I then put the orb on the phone, and then I just basically watched another 20 minutes, right? And we took another sample, and it went back to, you know, its normal, balanced
Right.
shape and form. So it reversed significantly. I mean, not 100%, but significantly. It reversed all of that, what is called Rouleaux syndrome. Rouleaux is where, you know, your blood cells stick together in a kind of chain. And although that's not a disease, it's the precursor to disease, because the oxygen can't get to those cells so easily.
Of course.
And also those cells have trouble moving through the capillaries as well, because they're all chained together, right? So, so it just represents some kind of electrical compromise in the blood, and that is not a good thing. And if you think about it, that was just from 20 minutes. And we've been holding these things in our hands and in our pockets and so on for 10 years, maybe even 20 years. And most people think I'm joking when I say all this stuff, because they go, well, I'm not feeling it. I'm not, you know, I don't need to worry about it. Well, here's the thing, you know, if you compare it to something like smoking, right? You know what happens to a smoker's lungs after 20 years, right? But in those 20 years, they might not have even had a cough. It's unlikely. They probably would have, but, you know, they might not have.
Sure.
The point is that your you know, the unseen things that are going on in the body are things that we don't worry about until they pop up as a something, right? And as soon as they pop up as a something, then you have to undo all of that time that you spent, you know, intoxicating yourself.
Right. Out of curiosity, Tim, do the stickers have an expiry on them, or once you put them on, it can be used indefinitely?
I'd love it if they did, because I get more repeat business. I'm joking. No, they last forever. So, I mean, this is the thing about what we call Deca Energy, is that, you know, we mentioned that dodecahedron structure with the 12 cones of spinning light.
Right.
Well, the cones of light never stop spinning. So once you've got the program, and this is the thing that the inventor brings to the table, is that he programs those units of energy to do what we want it to do. So in this case, it's to balance a radiation field. Our new product that might be coming out soon is to balance water. So put it on a water bottle, and then you drink the water, and they're super pure or super energized. So it depends on the program that you send into the patch,
Right.
right? So the program that we have in this patch is to balance all the radiation fields, and this is like really exciting stuff, because if he keeps making more products, then we'll see more and more good changes in the world, I hope.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, does the
Yeah.
sticker have to sorry, Peter, I'm just jumping
It's all
in
right.
here because I have so
No,
many questions.
carry on. I normally do, so feel free.
So the stickers, must they be applied directly to the device, or can you wear one? Is what I'm asking.
Well,
Instead of
here's the thing that we found out recently in a test that we call autonomic response testing, right? And that is a measurement of the coherence of the light around your body, right? And they use specific technology that I won't try and explain here, but you can see it all on our video on our website. Through autonomic response testing, we can test whether the light body is in coherence or not in coherence, right? So we basically measure whether you are in balance or out of balance, whether your energy is compromised or not. And what we found was that, basically the body is in its normal state, you'll be in coherence. Then we hold a phone and the body went into incoherence, right? So it wasn't coherent. And then we put the patch on the phone, right? And we found that the body went into coherence. But then we put the patch on the phone and put the phone next to the head, and the tests that they do can measure through what they call O-rings, the strength of the, basically the meridians here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's another 4 for each finger. So there's 8 levels of what they call healing state, right? Or yang state.
Mm-hmm.
And when this is on the phone and the phone is next to the head, the body went into the 8th, the deepest state of healing, of yang state. So that was complete news to me. I did not know that before we went in to do this ART testing, which is invented by a guy called Dr. Klinghardt, who is also a massive opponent of 5G, because he tests what it does to the body. And he says, guys, we can't do this. So he was super surprised, because he tests these types of products all the time. He was like, I can't believe I'm getting that result, because I've told everyone so far that they shouldn't, none of these things work, right? So that was amazing bonus for us. But in answer to your question, we then took it one step further and put the patch just on the body. We put one on the ear and then one on the heart. And we did find that it made a big improvement. So much so that we're going to bring out a pendant soon, which you can just hang around your neck. And then we would just advise people to do both, to harmonize the radiation field directly, and then put one on your neck for when you are, I don't know, maybe you're in the train station or you're around lots of other people's EMFs. But basically, when this is near you, within a foot of your body, it's providing this kind of force field of about 1 meter around your body. So as long as this is close to you, then you are creating that kind of, that little bubble.
Quick
one.
one.
Would say do both.
Tim, a quick one. When these things are switched off, are they still emitting an electromagnetic field?
Way less.
Okay.
You can still get a tiny little pulse out of them, but hardly anything. And I would say pretty much not. I'd actually go as far as saying no.
Because I've got a really suspicious nature, and with this whole virus and the threat of electronic tracking, I tend now to switch my phone off when I'm moving around, and only switch it on when I want someone to contact me or want to contact someone. So that would again be a safeguard for the magnetic field, right? By just switching it off until you need to use it.
Put it this way, right? I'm as suspicious as you are, and I reckon if I had my phone turned off and the CIA were trying to get me, I reckon they could still probably find me. Sadly.
Yeah.
I can't provide any proof of that or anything like that, but I've just, from what I've heard, I've sat through a lot of sort of security, forums and this, that, and the other, and they've suggested that might be the case, that your phone is never off.
That's right.
No.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, but if you were to put it in one of those, what do they call it? I've forgotten the name now. You can get a shield, a
Faraday
bag.
cage.
Faraday cage. Does that work?
I think it does work in that you can't get a signal to it. Here's the thing. I end up muscle testing all of the products that I find on the market, right? You know, someone pulls, I basically tell someone what I do and they say, oh, I've got one of these on my phone. And they say, well, should we muscle test it? Do you want to give that a go? And we do. And I found that Faraday cages or wallets, they do block the signal, but they don't stop the body from going weak when you hold it. And I don't know why that is.
Interesting.
I think it's mainly because the radiation is still trying to find its way to the phone, but it doesn't get there, and it sticks around the outside of the Faraday cage. If that makes sense. Yeah. I think I could be wrong.
Makes sense.
But ultimately, when we test them with that in their pocket and the Faraday cage, their body still says, well, to me, it says no. And I'll just caveat that by saying I'm not a trained professional kinesiology therapist, but I have hung around with them a lot, and they've kind of shown me how to do it basically.
Excellent. We're running out of time.
Yes, we are. Unfortunately, it sounds like we're going to have you back.
I think so, because we gave our audience a teaser about 5G in the beginning, and we were going to come back to it, and we briefly touched on it, and it's a big subject on its own. So maybe that's another show. But Tim, now's the point where you need to tell our audience how they can contact you to get your product, to find out more. If they want you to come and speak to them, whatever, how can they contact you?
Sure, great. Well, the website is Omnia Radiation Balancer.com. So OMNIA. Omnia, it means everything in Latin. Omnia Radiation Balancer, ER at the end.com. Or you can send me an email at hello@omniabalance.life. And we have a special offer for anyone listening, which is if they enter the coupon or the discount code PRESTIGE, PRESTIGE.
Okay.
All lowercase. If they want to enter that at the checkout, then you get a 10% discount.
Great.
That's just for your viewers. So those are the ways to get in touch. And we're also on YouTube. We do a lot of videos. I do interviews with the investor. I also give my views on what's going on in the news in EMF and so on. And we show all our test results on the Omnia Balance YouTube site.
Okay. I just want to double check on the email. It's hello@omniabalance.life.
.life, yeah.
Okay, got it.
So if there are any partners or affiliates or people like that want to get in touch, then, send me an email there.
Contact you there. Tim, thank you very much. Back to Kathleen.
Yes, Tim, that was very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you. So please keep your comments coming. We love reading them. And if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to Peter or myself. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.